Hello friends, myself Shriram Korde. In this video, I am going to explain to you about how do I find previous permutation in lexical order, or it is mentioned as lexicographic order. Here, the order that is given to you is mentioned here, that is SJADCHBEGI. That's essentially the order of permutation. Needless to mention, it is derived from letters A to I. Now, having given this problem, now one needs to solve and understand how do I find previous permutation. So now to solve this problem, one needs to go through several steps. So the steps are multiple in nature. So I'll just write down few steps so that you get an idea what are we supposed to do. So before that, let me just write down this particular permutation which is given to us here. So this is the permutation and I would like to give the indexes to it. So 0, 1, so like that I can give. So here let me just give a space so that it is readable. And now I can basically give these indexes here. So if I give these indexes, then you will see that this is what the string that is given to us, that is SJADCHBEGI. Now as I have mentioned to you, we need to follow multiple steps. So the step 1 essentially is, so let me just write it as step 1 or S1. So here we are going to do comparison. So I am just going to do compare as step 1. Compare the last element. I am just putting it here, last element and last minus 1. So that's essentially the two elements that I am going to compare each time. And how long I need to do it? Until the condition, so until the condition that is last minus 1 is less than equal to last fails. So this is very important. That means as long as it is true, I don't need to bother, but the sooner it fails, then I need to basically bother about it, I need to be aware or I need to do something else. So let's first do this step and we will understand this problem properly. So I written the steps now. So now what we will do is, we will go through it one by one. So what is the last here? So last is I and last minus 1 is G. So let's write down. So G is less than equal to I. Yes, why? Because the ASCII value of G is less than I. So we know that. So here I am going to say true. So this is true. That means it's not yet failed. Then I am going to proceed forward. E is less than equal to G. That means the next the previous comparison I am going to do. So again this happens to be true. Why? Because E is less than G. Then I will do B is less than equal to E. So this is also true. Now let me write the next one, that is H is less than equal to B. So obviously the ASCII value of H is not less than B. So here it fails. So that is what it basically I have tried to say. That means this now has failed. So now we note this down. What do? We note this down. That means the last element where it has failed. So this is the last element where it failed. So last element is B. And so last minus 1 is H. So please note this down. So last is B and last minus 1 is H. So now once we are basically done with this step 1, now we need to basically go and do step 2. So let me now write the step 2. So in the step 2, what we are going to do is, we are going to mark index of what? So we are going to mark the index where basically the thing has failed. Now where it has failed, so when we did comparison of H less than equal to B, that means essentially it failed here. Okay, so that is where I am showing you in this color, or this is the where I am marking it. So here I'm going to mark this index as I, and I'm going to note it down as say P of I, some value of I. So here if you look at it, so here now if I just say P of I, if I note it down, so that particular thing is B. That means I'm just noting it down here. So P of I is B, and now that means I is equal to 6. So please note this down. So this is very important. So I is now 6, and that is where we have noted it down. That means the last is B and last minus 1 was H. So this is the second step. Now having done this second step, now we are ready to do the third step. So now what are we going to do? We are going to compare the elements. So we are going to do compare elements. That means what is that? So compare the elements from P of j plus 1 until P of j plus 1 less than P of I minus 1 fails. That means you keep on doing as long as this fails. This is very important. Again I am putting it here. So until the condition this particular thing fails. So we are going to now do comparison. So that means now we need to know how do I compute J. So what is J? So J is I minus 1. Note this down. So J is I minus 1. J is I minus 1. That means 6 minus 1. Why? Because I is now 6. So 6 minus 1. So basically J is now 5. So J becomes 5. So J plus 1 basically is 6. So now what are we going to do? So we are now going to compare. So P of J plus 1, that means P of J plus 1 is equal to, so what is P of J plus 1? That means J plus 1 is 6. That means P of 6. So we are going to find P of 6, which is B. So if you look at here, I am just calling it up and you will see 6 is B. Okay. So P of 6 is B. And then I minus 1. So I is obviously 6. So I minus 1 is P of 5. So here I am going to write P of I minus 1, which is P of 5, which is H. So now here the important point here is I, this particular value I, this will remain constant. So I is constant or will remain constant. And now we are going to increment J. We are going to increment J as long as this condition, that is this condition, as long as is true. That means that's what I told you. So that means you compare till it fails. That means you are going to increment J as long as P of J plus 1 less than P of I minus 1 is true. So here what are we now going to do is, so J is equal to 5. So let me just write it down. J is equal to 5. So J plus 1 is equal to 6. So P of 6 is less than P of 5. Because I is 6, so I minus 1 is 5, so we have done this. So that means B is less than H. So this obviously is true. So I am just putting it here true. Similarly, now I will keep on doing it. Okay. So I have done this on paper, so or rather on my worksheet. So let me just put it here so that I don't waste time in typing. So here you will see J, when the J becomes 6, that means I am incrementing J. So J plus 1 is 7. So P of 7 is less than P of 5. Obviously I remains constant. I told you, like I minus 1. So I is constant. I mentioned it here. So I will remain constant. So I is not going to change. It's only the J that changes. So we are basically comparing it with P of 5. So here you will see this particular thing, that is J is equal to 6. That means E is less than H. This is true. G is less than H. Yes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. That means G is less than H. So this is true. Now comes the j is equal to 8. So here we are going to do j plus 1. That means this particular thing will be 9. So P of 9. So P of 9 is less than P of 5. So let's see that. So what is P of 9? So P of 9 is I, and here this is H. So HI, that means I comes later. So that means this has failed. So this fails. This is false or fails essentially. Okay, so this is false or it fails essentially. Okay, so it has failed. This condition has failed. Okay, so what you now do is, so we are done with this step 1, 2 and 3. So there are few more steps which are remaining, so which will be covered in next video. I hope you will basically would like to learn this completely. So since it should not become a very big video, I am just stopping it and will continue in the next video. Thank you.